Welcome to another Dr. Russ Air Gun Adventures. Today we're going to be testing this rifle right here. A break barrel from one of the oldest manufacturers of air guns around, Gamo from Spain, and one of the largest in Europe. We're going to find out what's good about it and what's bad about it in today's program. Gamo has decided to make this new Whisper air gun, the Swarm Whisper, into 4 different air guns. You need to be careful which one you're buying and what you're going to get for the price. Let me show you. These 4 air guns make up the backbone of Gamo's break barrel rifles. In large part, they're the same gun, but they do have some differences. This is the gun that started it out, the Gamo Swarm Whisper multi-shot. What do they mean by multi-shot? Well, it uses this magazine right here, and it held 10 rounds. Not exactly this magazine, I'll explain that in a second, but one just like it. And it fits right in here. And every time you cock it, it would load a round into it. For that reason, to get up over this, we needed some very high scope mounts to get the scope above this obstacle here in the way. It's a gas piston gun. It has a 2-stage trigger, and it's been a very big seller, if you will, in the department stores. It was followed up, and by the way, it's available still today for about $199. It was followed up with a second version, and that's called the Maxxim 10-shot 10X. In this case, it's generation 2. And what do we mean by generation 2? It means that this high upright piece that held the 10 rounds has been laid down. And now the scope doesn't have to be quite as high. That's really what generation 2 brought to the table. It still has a fluted barrel. It really doesn't have a moderator. It looks like it's a moderated. It has this fluted outer barrel, but it really doesn't function like an air gun. It's only available in the vinyl stocks. There's no wood stock available. It has a 2-stage trigger and a manual safety, and the 2-stage trigger in all the 3 of the 4 guns is called a CAT, which is custom adjustable trigger. But back up here in this Whisper, they call it a SAT, or smooth action trigger. Let's go on over to the third part of the backbone, and that was one called Fusion. And now we went from $199 on the first 2 to $279. What did we get for that extra $79? Well, we still have the same gas piston. We still have a scope that was included. We still have a fluted barrel, but we did pick up a moderator, and that's kind of nice. For $279, coming only in 17 gauge and 22 gauge. And finally, the 4th gun was called the Magnum 10X, and it doesn't cost $279, it costs $299, and it has a better nitro, not nitro, but a gas piston in it, and it's called the Mach 1. Well, you know, Mach 1 means it's the speed of sound. One of the things we want to do is stay away from the speed of sound, because we really pick up some extra noise when we do that. Nonetheless, the gas piston in this gun versus the other 3 is called the Mach 1, and it gets 17 calibers up to 1,650 feet per second if they're alloy. At least that's the advertised amount. I haven't found anybody hit 1,650 yet, usually around 1,350. And then in the 22, or the lead version, it's 1,300 and lower. In the 22 caliber, it stays about 1,300 for 22 alloy and about 975 feet per second with heavier lead pellets. This explains the 4. Notice that 3 of the 4 have these, if it's a generation 2, it has this lower accessory that holds the pellets down in a horizontal position like this. Speaking of pellets, when we look here at the back of it, we can see that exclamation point. That means we're out of bullets. It's done shot the 10. We see some numbers on the side. Well, we see them when it's out, but we don't see them when it's in. And it's rather easy to load. Let me show you how. So here's the magazine. And usually when we see some new contraption on the front of a gun, like we do here with these Gamos, we say, gee, that's strange. I don't know that I want to even learn about it. But it's actually quite easy. The pellets fit in like this. They're held by that rubber band. And there's other companies, Hatson uses it certainly, where a rubber band holds that in place. We just continue to manually turn this and put in the pellets until we get all 10 in. The air gun I have today is the Maxxim. This is one of them that's $199. And you can see this contraption up front. This is what allows 10 shots to be preloaded. I've filled this magazine. I've now clicked it down into place. And the next thing is to cock it and shoot it. £30 pressure to cock this round. And now all of the springs and devices here are making this load back and put one into the barrel instead of me hand loading it one at a time. This device is on some YouTube videos where the sponsor shoots it 10 times in 20 seconds. Wow, all 10 shots, 20 seconds. The old method, loading one in at a time, you shoot typically 2 in 20 seconds. So you can see a much greater chance of rapid fire follow-up shots can be taking place just because of this. That doesn't mean that that magazine doesn't have flaws. I can see why Gamo has made this the backbone of their business, but it does have flaws. The first one was the difference between Generation 1 and Generation 2, making it lay flat rather than sticking up and requiring this scope to be as high as possible. But I think the biggest flaw is once she breaks open, sometimes it spits out pellets onto the ground. It doesn't hold 10 anymore, and that's not so good. So that rubber band is not a precision device yet. Secondly, and the biggest, is they only give you one. I thought I was getting 2. What made me think I was getting 2 was this compartment in the hand grip that holds a second one. I thought, well, if you got the compartment, you probably get the second magazine. I was wrong. I had to buy a second one. And this was $40 on eBay. What's important, if you look in close here, the back of all of these packages, it says 10X, Gamo, is this the wrong one. So this is not for the one with the high accessory loading device front. Here's the green check mark. This is for the newer Generation 2. The difference is about $20 for the old and about $40 for the new. That happens to be for a .22 caliber. And you see this green line here on the stock. That is the new way that Gamo lets you know what caliber an air gun is. If it's a red line, it's 17 caliber. If it's a green line, it's .22. They've got a rubber butt cushion back here. I actually had to poke out these rectangular pieces of square rubber when I got it. Did they forget to remove it? Do they want me to remove it? I'm not sure, but it's there. So the biggest complaint here is you get one magazine, and I would say the second most complaint when I viewed all the internet places for people to indicate how they like the gun. Well, they love the fact that you can load 10 in a hurry. They did not like the fact that this can spit them out onto the ground. The number one complaint with the air gun, and I got to tell you, it's a great value. I'll show you why in a minute. But the number one complaint was this scope. This is an entry-level scope, and they make it available on all 4 guns. It's a 3x9 with a 40 millimeter objective lens. But this thing couldn't cost over 10 bucks, and they put it on. A lot of people buy the gun and then spend $100 to replace it on this gun that's $200. Let me just get some complaints out of the way. This stock, which looks quite nice, it has a texture to it for better gripping, particularly if it gets wet, but there's edges on it. This edge right here was catching my cheek, and I had to take a little tiny file. Your girlfriend or wife would have one, and there were some places here on the forearm that needed the same thing. It was just sharp edges. So somewhat attractive, but it needs some work. It needs some finishing. And to keep in mind, this isn't a $1,500 or $2,000 gun. You can get them from the big guys, you know, Arizona Gun Depot and Pyramid, and these people will sell those first 2 guns, the Whisper and this, for $199, and the other 2 for $279 and $299. But I found them on eBay for $350 and $400. Now it's not such a value anymore when you pay that kind of price. The fluted barrel. Well, fluted barrel makes it look very modern. But, and fluted barrels are on the most modern regular powder rifles out there. It helps dissipate heat, but there is no heat with an air gun, so it's really here for just design. And there is no moderator on the gun. We think there's a moderator, but there isn't. I have purchased, haven't received it yet, but by taking this off, I can put some sectional pieces down in here. There's room for it, and I can turn this into a moderator. Let me talk about why you'd even want a moderator for just a moment. A moderator is a silencer, a suppressor, if you will. And we want them to quiet the gun down. Let's review that question. Why do we want it quiet down, and when do we want it to quiet down, and how much do we want to quiet it down? Well, the big thing is that if 90% of your shooting is done in the backyard, you'd like it to be quiet for neighbors. Well, I have to tell you that if you step aside 20 yards either way, you probably don't hear this gun. Now, if you stand somewhere out in the back of your backyard, and I have targets in the back of mine, and so I'm somewhat aiming it in your direction, I just don't know you're there watering some plant or tree or something, you'll hear this gun. And so that's what we want to do. We want to quiet it. But there's 3 sounds that air guns make, and a moderator only deals with the pellet leaving the barrel, that popping sound. It's the big bang sound for powder guns, and we're dealing with that sound there. I can tell you that 22 caliber has a louder sound than the 17. I think there's just more air pressure back there pushing that 22, and when it finally escapes, it makes a louder bang, if you will. So I anticipate somewhere over 100 decibels when we have 22 caliber, and somewhere closer to maybe 80 when we have a 17. But that's only the first sound. What are the other 2? Well, when that pellet exceeds the speed of sound, about 1,050 feet a second, that's when you get that boing sound, and trust me, neighbors don't like that sound. That says a bullet's going through the air, a bullet that can kill people, put out an eye or whatever. So we've got to stay under that speed of sound to be truly backyard friendly, and they can hear that 2-3 houses away. How do we do it? Do not shoot the alloy pellets. The alloy pellets have a couple of problems. Number one, they'll hit 1,300, advertise 1,600 feet a second in that Magnum, but that's not important. You're really getting sound for that. You're not getting accuracy. The most accurate pellets you'll shoot are the heaviest pellets, and getting them in a tight groove on your target. There's a third sound to deal with. What in the world are we shooting down there? Well, I like to shoot frying pans. They make a loud clang, and they make a noise. A moderator isn't going to help that. Velocity isn't going to really help it either. So we also have to be careful. What are the targets we're shooting at in our backyard? The moderator itself is only going to help us with sound number one. Before I shoot this thing, let me just talk about that scope for another second. I really dislike scopes that come with guns. It's a cheap scope. It's an entry-level scope. It has problems. It's definitely not a scope like this one here. First of all, it doesn't have an AOL, an adjustable objective lens adjustment there. That doesn't take away from this rear one, which makes the matter clear, the picture clear, but it does help you be more accurate at longer shots. So we lose that. Secondly, we just get two very tiny lines. Well, shooting off into the woods or something, that's kind of hard to see those lines. And we definitely don't get mill dots or hash marks that allow us to adjust by wind, rain, anything blowing that might take a pellet off course. And so we end up buying something like that for this. My second complaint with this scope is when they come mounted, they're so close to this 10X loading device that you can't put the scope caps on it. It comes with scope caps. So you have to loosen it and bring it back. You'll find out that when you bring it back, you then get this approximate 2 to 3 inches from my eye. That's when you see a real nice picture. And so we've got to move the scope back from their factory adjustment. Now with that, let's see just how accurate this gun can be. Again, this backbone of the Gamo break barrel rifles is these 4 swarm guns named Whisper, Maxxim, Fusion, and Magnum. When we shoot a break barrel, the thing we have to remember is the artillery hold. And that means that this forearm is loose in your hand because the gun really wants to do this when it shoots versus other types. The spring piston's the same way. To get the best support, I want to bring this elbow into my body. And so now, with that against my body, I have the best chance. As tight as this is to my body, it's still an artillery position and it can still move. Let me say something about the artillery position. You probably do it different than I. The key here for any gun, powder, air, whatever, is that we're always using a consistent hold on it. By consistent, it allows the gun to do what it can do. And since you might have 10 pounds of pressure up here, I might have 20 pounds, the artillery wants no pressure at all. And it wants to let this gun do what it can do as I pull this trigger. It has, all 4 rifles have a safety, and it's a manual safety. So it doesn't automatically come on position when I cock it. Even firing it, you can take a look here and see, cocking it for the next one, what's happened? A pellet has come out, or half out. That's not good. That is not good. That's some of the problems that they're having with these magazines that cost up to $40 to replace. You're going to want a heavy pellet. One other drawback, and I got to tell you, I think the pluses outweigh the negatives on this. It's really nice to shoot off some fast rounds. But one of the other negatives is that when something goes bad and we have a magazine that doesn't work, and that happens, how do we load? Some people say, well, just load it manually like the old way. You can't with this device. Some people, particularly with that Generation 1, they took this whole device off and they load every round, one at a time with their thumbs, using heavy pellets. So there lies a problem. And that was the solution. Take it off. The very thing that made this a good gun, take it off. And then how do we clean it? Well, this device is in the way if we were to clean the gun. So I think there's only one way, and that's to use these cotton pellets that you get, and you put it into the magazine, and they come in packages like that and packages like this, and they'll fit in here. And once they're put in and they shoot out the barrel, that to me is probably the best, safest way to get this barrel clean after shooting it. Now let me show you something about this gun. Another small problem with break barrels is you'll hear people say, well, you have to shoot them 300 times, 500 times before that barrel, rifled barrel, by the way, gets leaded in. So just get some cheap pellets and start shooting away, and then worry about sighting it in once you get that barrel leaded in. Well, with today's prices, and I'm going to talk a little bit about that in the next video, there's a real run on all ammo these days and on all guns. And so there isn't anything called cheap ammo anymore. But we've got to get that gun broke in. This gun that I have here, this Maxxim, is not broke in. But I was pleasantly surprised at the 10-shot grouping I got. Using this gun, I probably only had about 50 pellets out of the barrel when I shot this. Now, I haven't done it with this because I was out of any alloy pellets. I shot them up a long time ago, but I can assure you that when you put lightweight pellets, oh, they'll be scattered all out here at 30, 35 yards. And then when we start talking about 65 yards, which is where a lot of game appears, this opens up to the full 5-6 inch target. But for alloy, oh, they're not even hitting the paper here at all. So we want to be very careful about using the heaviest pellets possible. Another thing is I believe in lubricating. I didn't say oiling, and I didn't say putting Vaseline in the back to diesel them. That's just some trickery you do on the side one day for fun. But when you're talking about good, consistent pellets, I like to use, in this case, I use this you'll find at motorcycle shops. It's not spray oil, it's a spray oily wax. And what's nice about it is it doesn't run down the barrel and down into the mechanism. That's what you don't want. What it does do is it just puts a light coat on this to line that barrel and allow that pellet. And this is why a lot of people have trouble with pellets. I've tried 10 pellets. I'll get a letter on email. I've tried 10 pellets. I haven't found the right one yet, is a common complaint. Well, whether you realize it or not, pellets are made. A 22 isn't always a 22. There's tenths and hundredths of an inch beyond that that allow that pellet to be a little bigger, a little smaller. Oil is the thing that makes it consistently tight, consistently makes it tough for the oil, the air to pass around the outside of the pellet going out. And it allows a smoother delivery out that barrel. That's why but I don't want the gun to be sitting back and drain back down into my mechanisms. I want to put the gun for a day or two and let it drain the other way, or horizontal, but not to let it drain back. With things like chain wax, and there's some lubes at your gun store, because those bullets are lubed too. And they've got mechanisms they're trying to protect. They're the ones to use, not any regular spray oil. Let me close on this interesting fact. not only has Gamo put a lot of their game on these 4 rifles that basically have the same mechanism up here, but this is our 40th video. We started a year ago November, 2 a month, and this makes number 40. I've got a couple more coming up that I think you'll be interested in. If you'd like, give me a thumbs up. If you like, subscribe so you're first in line to get the new videos. But let me share one other tip with you. Somewhere on your computer screen, your cell phone screen, you'll see a tiny oval picture of me. And if you click on that tiny oval picture, bingo, you come into the library of all 40 of our videos, with 2 more coming each month. And you may find something on accuracy, on hunting, that you think is very important for yourself. And I urge you to go onto our channel and see these 40 and check them out, rather than just trying to search and find 40 on YouTube's website. Take you a little longer, I'm afraid. Until then, watch these videos and stay air gun sharp.